The stars burned red with laser fire as Commander Lisa Martinez watched the battle from her ship's bridge. Her vessel, the Terra's Hope, hung in space far from the fighting, but she could see everything through the main screen. Massive alien ships traded shots with each other, their weapons lighting up the darkness like deadly fireworks. Another Confederation cruiser just went down, reported her communications officer. Lisa nodded grimly. The war had been going on for 200 years, and today looked like it might be the day the good guys finally lost. The Zephyrians, tall, blue-skinned aliens with 4 arms, had been leading the Confederation fleet. Their ships were sleek and beautiful, covered in smooth metal that gleamed in the starlight. But beautiful didn't mean tough. The Vorthak Empire's black warships tore through them like paper. Captain Jake Sullivan stood next to Lisa, his face hard as stone. He had been watching alien wars for 15 years, ever since Earth made first contact. The humans had wanted to help, but the aliens always said no. Too young, they would say. Too primitive. Now Jake wondered if they were all going to die because of that pride. "Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Kethmore," called the communications. Officer Lisa looked at Jake. Admiral Kethmore was the Zephyrian fleet commander, and he hated humans almost as much as he hated the Vorthak. If he was calling them, things were very bad. The main screen flickered and Admiral Kethmore's face appeared. His blue skin was pale, and his 4 eyes looked tired. Behind him, Lisa could see smoke and sparks on his ship's bridge. "Human commander," Kethmore said, his voice shaking slightly. We need your help." Jake stepped forward. "What kind of help, Admiral?" "Military help. Combat support. We are losing this war." The words seemed to hurt him to say. "The Vorthak have deployed something new, a weapon that can crack planets in half. They are moving toward our core worlds." Lisa felt her heart speed up. "You're asking us to fight?" "Yes." Kethmore's image flickered as another explosion rocked his ship. "The Confederation Council has voted. We formally request human military assistance." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Admiral, we've been ready for this day for a long time." The transmission ended, and Lisa turned to her crew. "Get me Earth Command, Priority 1. While her officers worked, Lisa thought about what this meant. For 2 centuries, humans had watched from the sidelines as the galaxy tore itself apart. The Confederation had ships that could cross space in minutes, weapons that could destroy moons, and technology that seemed like magic. The Vorthak were even worse. Their soldiers were 9 feet tall, covered in natural armor, and bred for war. But humans had something different. They had never stopped fighting each other, never stopped improving their weapons, never stopped thinking of new ways to kill their enemies. While the aliens had spent centuries in peace, humans had spent them in constant conflict. Dr. Helen Park entered the bridge carrying a datapad. She was small and quiet, but her mind was sharp as a knife. "I've been studying the battle recordings," she said. "The Vorthak fight the same way they did 200 years ago. Same formation, same tactics, same weapons." "And the Confederation?" Lisa asked. "Same thing. They've been fighting this war for so long they've forgotten how to change." Helen pulled up a hologram showing the battle patterns. "Look at this. Every engagement follows the same rules. Long-range energy weapons, shield-to-shield combat, formal battle lines. It's like they're dancing, not fighting." Jake smiled for the first time that day. "Then they're in for a surprise." Lisa's communications officer called out, "Ma'am, General Watson is on the line." General Amy Watson's face appeared on screen. She was a tough woman in her 50s with gray hair and scars on her hands from her days as a Marine. "Lisa, Jake, I just got word. Is it true?" "Yes, ma'am," Jake said. "They're asking us to join the fight." "About time." Watson's smile was cold. "How long do we have?" "The Vorthak superweapon will be in range of Confederation core worlds in 6 hours," Lisa reported. "Then we'd better move fast. I'm activating Operation Thunder. All human fleets are to rendezvous at your position in 1 hour." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Operation Thunder was Earth's secret war plan, developed over decades of watching alien conflicts. It was based on one simple idea. While the aliens had forgotten how to fight, humans never had. As Watson's image disappeared, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Torres entered the bridge. He was young for his rank, but his eyes were old. He had studied every battle in the war, learned every alien tactic, and planned for this day. "Colonel," Lisa said, "are your people ready?" "Yes, ma'am. The Marines have been training for Vorthak combat for 10 years. We know their weaknesses." "They have weaknesses?" Jake asked. Helen nodded. "Their exoskeletons are tough, but they have one major flaw. They're vulnerable to specific sound frequencies. Human sonic weapons can disrupt their nervous systems." "And their tactics?" Lisa asked. "Individual combat focused," Torres said. "Each Vorthak warrior is trained to fight alone. They don't use teamwork the way humans do. They've never faced coordinated squad tactics." Lisa looked out at the battle, still raging in the distance. The beautiful Confederation ships were still dying, their crews probably wondering if the humans would actually show up to help. "1 hour," she said to her crew. "In 1 hour, we show the galaxy what humans can do." Jake nodded. "The aliens think we're primitive because we still fight with bullets and bombs. They don't understand that sometimes old ways work better than new ones." "Contact the Confederation fleet," Lisa ordered. "Tell them to pull back and regroup. Tell them the cavalry is coming." As her crew worked to prepare for battle, Lisa thought about Earth's history. Humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They had learned to adapt, to improvise, to use any weapon available. While the aliens had advanced beyond physical combat, humans had perfected it. The stars still burned with laser fire, but soon they would burn with something else. Soon they would burn with human fury, and the galaxy would learn why it was a mistake to underestimate the species from the small blue planet. In 1 hour, everything would change. The human fleet arrived in waves of light and metal. Ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace, their hulls gleaming under the distant star. Lisa Martinez watched from the Terra's Hope as her people took their positions. These weren't the elegant, curved vessels of the Confederation. Human ships looked different. They were smaller, boxier, covered in strange bumps and edges that served purposes the aliens couldn't guess. 43 combat vessels reporting in, her communications officer announced. "All green across the board," Lisa nodded. It wasn't a big fleet compared to what the Confederation usually brought to battle. But size wasn't everything. Sometimes a small hammer could drive a nail better than a huge one. A new transmission came in from the Confederation command ship. This time it wasn't Admiral Kethmore. Instead, Chancellor Vexthon appeared on screen, his tall, thin form draped in the formal robes of the Altarian ruling class. His face was pale green, and his large eyes looked down at Lisa with obvious distaste. "So these are the humans we're supposed to trust with our survival," Vexthon said, his voice full of doubt. "Barely spacefaring primitives who still fight with crude weapons." Jake Sullivan stepped forward, his jaw tight. "Chancellor, with respect, we're here to help. Maybe we should focus on the enemy instead of insulting your allies." "Allies?" Vexathon laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You have been in space for less than a century. My people have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. What could you possibly teach us?" Before Jake could answer, another voice cut through the transmission. "Maybe how to win one." Everyone turned as General Amy Watson's image appeared beside the Chancellor's. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. "Chancellor Vexthon, I presume. I'm General Watson, Earth's Supreme Military Commander." "General," Vexthon said with a slight bow, "I hope you understand the gravity of the situation. This is not some minor conflict on your primitive world. This is galactic warfare." "I understand perfectly," Watson replied. "What I don't understand is how you've been fighting the same enemy for 200 years without winning. That's not galactic warfare. That's incompetence." The bridge fell silent. Lisa held her breath. No one talked to Confederation leaders like that. But Watson wasn't finished. You want to know what humans can teach you? We can teach you how to adapt. Every battle recording we've studied shows the same thing. You fight the same way your great-grandfathers did. Same formation, same tactics, same predictable moves. The Vorthak know exactly what you're going to do before you do it. Our methods are proven, Vexthon said stiffly. Proven to fail, Watson shot back. You've lost more ships in the last month than we built in the last year. Maybe it's time to try something new. The transmission cut off, leaving the human bridge in silence. Finally, Jake whistled low. Well, that went well. The general's right, though, said Dr. Helen Park, who had been quietly studying her datapad. I've been analyzing 2 centuries of battle records. The tactical evolution stopped completely about 50 years into the war. Both sides got locked into patterns and never changed. What kind of patterns? Lisa asked. Helen brought up a hologram showing ship movements from a dozen different battles. Look at this. Every engagement starts the same way. Long-range energy, weapon exchange, shield-to-shield combat, formal battle lines. It's like a ritual, not a war. And the Vorthak? Same thing. They rely on their superior individual combat skills and stronger ships, but they never try anything unexpected. They just do the same thing harder. Lisa studied the patterns. It was true. The alien fleets moved like dancers following an ancient choreography. Beautiful, but predictable. What about their weapons? Pure energy systems, Helen said. Plasma cannons, laser arrays, particle beams, very advanced, very clean. They gave up kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. Jake smiled. Mistake number 1. Why? Lisa asked. Because kinetic weapons work differently. You can't deflect a bullet with an energy shield the same way you deflect a laser, and you can't predict where shrapnel will go when a missile explodes. Ari. New voice joined the conversation. And that's just the beginning. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Torres entered the bridge, followed by a man Lisa didn't recognize. Commander Martinez, Torres said. I'd like you to meet Engineer Marcus Brown. He's been working on our secret weapon. Marcus was a big man with oil-stained hands and a wild grin. Commander, wait until you see what we've built. We took their energy systems and mixed them with our kinetic weapons. The result is something no one in the galaxy has seen before. Show me, Lisa said. Marcus activated a holographic display showing a cutaway view of a human ship. Standard Confederation energy shields, right? They're designed to stop energy weapons, but watch what happens when we fire this. The hologram showed a missile launching from the human ship. But this wasn't a normal missile. As it approached, the enemy vessel, the warhead split open, revealing a cluster of smaller projectiles. Kinetic penetrators with energy cores, Marcus explained. The shield stops the energy part, but the kinetic part punches right through. Then the energy core explodes inside the enemy ship. Lisa stared at the display. That's brilliant, and completely unfair. War isn't supposed to be fair, Torres said. It's supposed to be won, and we've got a lot more tricks where that came from. Such as? Helen pulled up another display, this one showing Vorthak anatomy. Remember I told you about their vulnerability to sonic weapons? Well, we've weaponized it. Every human ship now carries sonic pulse generators tuned to disrupt Vorthak nervous systems. Will it kill them? Lisa asked. No, but it'll make them too dizzy to fight back. Think of it as a non-lethal way to disable warriors who are 3 times stronger than us. Jake was looking at the tactical displays with growing excitement. What about boarding actions? The Confederation has been trying to board Vorthak ships for decades, and failing because they fight fair. Torres said, Vorthak warriors are bred for individual combat. One-on-one, they're nearly unbeatable. But humans don't fight one-on-one. Pack tactics, Lisa said, understanding. Exactly. 3 humans working together can take down a Vorthak warrior who could easily beat any one of them alone. And we've been practicing boarding actions for years. Marcus brought up another display showing human Marines in action. We've also got something the Confederation doesn't. Explosives, real old-fashioned bombs. The aliens gave up explosive weapons centuries ago. They think they're crude and unpredictable. They are unpredictable, Jake said. That's the point. How do you defend against something you can't predict? Lisa was beginning to understand why General Watson had been so confident. The humans weren't just bringing new weapons to the fight, they were bringing a completely different way of thinking about warfare. How long do we have? She asked. Torres checked his chronometer. 4 hours until the Vorthak superweapon is in range of Confederation core worlds. But we won't need that long. How long will we need? Torres smiled, and for the first time Lisa saw why the enemy should be afraid. 5 hours to end a 200-year war. Maybe less. The human fleet continued to gather, their strange ships, taking positions around the Terra's Hope. Each vessel carried weapons and tactics the galaxy had never seen. Each crew was trained in ways of fighting that the advanced alien civilizations had forgotten. Soon, the Vorthak Empire would learn that sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and sometimes being primitive was exactly what you needed to be. The Vorthak fleet hung in space like a wall of black metal and death. Their ships were massive, each one the size of a small city. Dark armor covered every surface, and weapon ports glowed red along their hulls. For 200 years, no enemy had been able to break through their formations. Admiral Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, her new flagship. Around her, 42 other human ships waited in the darkness. They looked tiny compared to the Vorthak vessels, like wolves facing down elephants. All ships report ready, her communications officer announced. Good, Lisa said. She opened a channel to the entire human fleet. This is Admiral Martinez. Today we end a war that has lasted 2 centuries. Remember your training. Trust your teammates, and show the galaxy what humans can do. She closed the channel and looked at Captain Jake Sullivan. Ready? Born ready, he replied. Execute Operation Thunder. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions. Instead of forming the neat battle lines the aliens expected, the ships spread out like a cloud of angry wasps. The Vorthak had been preparing for another formal engagement, ships facing ships in orderly rows. They weren't prepared for chaos. Captain Ben Morrison led the first wave of fighters from his ship, the USS Hornet. His vessel was small and fast, built more like an atmospheric fighter than a space cruiser. Behind him, 20 similar ships darted toward the enemy formation. Remember, people, Ben said over the radio. We're mosquitoes. Hit fast, hit hard, and don't stay in one place long enough to get swatted. The Vorthak opened fire with their massive energy cannons. Beams of purple light lanced out trying to hit the darting human ships. But the aliens were used to fighting larger, slower targets. Their weapons couldn't track the small, fast human vessels. Ben's ship dove under a Vorthak dreadnought, racing along its black hull. The enemy's guns couldn't angle down far enough to hit him. At point-blank range, he fired his new kinetic torpedoes. The missiles struck the alien ship's hull and punched through the armor like it was paper. Inside the enemy vessel, the warheads exploded, sending shockwaves through the ship's structure. Warning lights flashed on the Vorthak bridge as systems failed throughout their vessel. Direct hit on target 1, Ben reported. They're hurt bad. All around the battlefield, other human ships were doing the same thing. They zipped between the massive Vorthak vessels, too small and fast to be easily targeted. Their kinetic weapons tore through armor that had been designed to stop energy beams, not physical projectiles. The Vorthak tried to adapt, but they had been fighting the same way for centuries. Their tactical computers couldn't process the chaotic human attack patterns. Their gunners had never faced enemies that moved like this. Enemy formation is breaking apart, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from her position at the sensor station. They don't know how to respond to our tactics. Lisa smiled grimly. Phase 2. Begin boarding operations. Colonel Diana Hayes had been waiting for this moment. Her assault ship, the USS Hammer, raced toward a damaged Vorthak cruiser. Behind her, 3 more ships carried Marines trained specifically for fighting the alien warriors. Remember, Diana told her troops over the radio, Vorthak are tough, but they fight alone. We fight together. Stick to your squads and watch each other's backs. The human ships clamped onto the Vorthak hull like ticks on a dog. Cutting torches burned through the alien armor, and human Marines poured into the enemy vessel. The first Vorthak warrior Diana encountered was 9 feet tall and covered in natural armor that looked like black metal. His forearms ended in claws that could cut through steel, and his face was a nightmare of teeth and glowing red eyes. Any one human would have died facing such a creature, but Diana didn't fight alone. 3 Marines hit the alien warrior from different directions at once. While he focused on one attacker, the others struck his blind spots. Within seconds, the mighty Vorthak was down. "This is easier than we thought," one of Diana's sergeants reported. "Don't get cocky," Diana warned. "Stay in formation." The humans moved through the Vorthak ship like a disciplined army. They used explosives to blast through bulkheads, sonic weapons to disorient enemy warriors, and coordinated tactics to overwhelm individual opponents. Dr. Helen Park's sonic weapons proved devastating. The sound frequencies she had discovered disrupted the Vorthak nervous system, making the alien warriors stumble and lose coordination. What had been deadly opponents became confused, dizzy creatures that could barely stand. "The sonic pulse is working perfectly," Helen reported from her lab ship. "Enemy resistance is dropping by 60% wherever we use it." Back on the main battlefield, the space combat continued. The human ships darted in and out of the Vorthak formation like a school of fish attacking a whale. Every few seconds, another kinetic torpedo found its mark, and another alien ship suffered internal explosions. The Vorthak tried to close ranks, bringing their ships together to provide mutual support, but this just made them better targets for human weapons. The aliens were thinking defensively, trying to protect what they had instead of attacking what threatened them. "They're fighting scared," Jake observed from the Liberty's bridge. "They don't understand what's happening to them." Lisa watched the tactical display as red enemy symbols began blinking out one by one. "How long since we started the attack?" 2 hours, 37 minutes, her navigation officer reported. "We're ahead of schedule." On the boarding front, Diana's Marines had reached the engine room of the Vorthak cruiser. The alien crew tried to stop them, but human tactics proved superior. While Vorthak warriors were trained for individual glory, humans were trained for teamwork. "Plant the charges," Diana ordered. Her demolition expert, Sergeant Mike Carter, began setting explosive devices throughout the engine compartment. These weren't the clean energy weapons the aliens were used to. These were old-fashioned bombs that would tear the ship apart from the inside. "Charges set," Mike reported. "We've got 5 minutes to get out." The human Marines retreated to their assault ships, leaving the Vorthak vessel to its fate. When the bombs exploded, the enemy cruiser broke apart in a spectacular display of fire and debris. Similar scenes were playing out across the battlefield. Human boarding parties struck fast and hard, then withdrew before the enemy could organize a response. Ship after ship in the Vorthak fleet suffered internal explosions as human explosives did their work. "Enemy flagship is trying to signal retreat," Lieutenant Kim reported. "Don't let them," Lisa ordered. "All ships, pursue and engage. We end this, here and now." The human fleet changed formation again, this time forming hunting packs that chased down fleeing Vorthak vessels. The aliens had never faced an enemy that could match their speed while carrying such devastating firepower. Captain Ben Morrison's fighter group cornered a Vorthak destroyer trying to escape. "This is Hornet Group," he reported. "Target is trapped and requesting surrender." Lisa felt a moment of amazement. In 200 years of war, no Vorthak ship had ever surrendered. Now they were giving up rather than face human weapons. "Accept their surrender," she ordered. "But keep your weapons trained on them." As the 3rd hour of combat ended, the tide of battle had completely turned. The Vorthak fleet, which had seemed invincible at the start of the day, was scattered and broken. Human tactics had proven superior to alien technology. But the biggest prize still waited. The Vorthak superweapon, the planet-cracking siege cannon, hung in the center of their formation like a metal moon. If humanity could destroy that weapon, the war would be over. Lisa opened a channel to Major Alex Chen, her best pilot. "Alex, think you can get through their defenses?" "I was born for this," Alex replied. His fighter was already racing toward the massive weapon, dodging defensive fire from the remaining Vorthak ships. The final phase of the battle was about to begin. The Vorthak superweapon filled the view screen like a metal mountain. It was bigger than any ship in either fleet, its surface covered with massive cannons that could crack planets. Defensive turrets dotted its hull like deadly flowers, each one tracking Major Alex Chen's fighter as he approached. "This is crazy," Alex muttered to himself as laser beams filled the space around his ship. He rolled left, then dove down, using every trick he had learned in Earth's atmosphere. The Vorthak gunners were good, but they had never faced a pilot who could think in 3 dimensions the way humans did. Behind him, the main battle continued to rage. Admiral Lisa Martinez watched from the Liberty's bridge as her fleet systematically destroyed what remained of the Vorthak formation. But the real prize was that superweapon. If they could take it out, the enemy would have no choice but to surrender. "Alex, how are you doing out there?" Lisa asked over the radio. "Like threading a needle in a hurricane," Alex replied, dodging another burst of enemy fire. "But I'm getting closer." On the other side of the battlefield, Commander Steve Johnson was leading his own assault. His target was the Vorthak flagship, a massive vessel that served as the enemy's command center. Steve's specialty was infiltration, and he had been studying Vorthak ship designs for years. "Boarding Team Alpha, we're going in through the waist. Disposal port," Steve said to his squad. "It's not glamorous, but they won't expect it." His assault ship, the USS Dagger, approached the enemy flagship from below. The Vorthak were so focused on the space battle that they didn't notice one small human vessel attaching itself to their hull like a parasite. Steve and his team cut through the ship's outer hull and crawled through maintenance tunnels that were barely big enough for humans. The passages were too small for Vorthak warriors, which meant the humans could move through the ship without being detected. Intelligence was right, Steve whispered to his team. "These ships are designed for creatures twice our size. We can go places they can't follow." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Sarah Kim was working her own kind of magic from her position aboard the Liberty. The young intelligence officer had been studying Vorthak communication patterns for months, looking for weaknesses in their command structure. "Admiral," Sarah called out excitedly, "I'm reading something interesting in their radio traffic. The Vorthak command system is completely centralized. Every order has to come from the flagship." Lisa turned to look at her. "What does that mean?" "It means if we can disrupt their command ship, the rest of their fleet won't know what to do. They're not trained to think for themselves." This was exactly the kind of information Lisa needed. "Steve, did you hear that?" Steve's voice crackled over the radio from inside the enemy flagship. "Loud and clear, Admiral. We're heading for their command center now." The human infiltration team moved through the Vorthak ship like ghosts. They used sonic weapons to disable any alien they encountered, leaving confused and dizzy warriors in their wake. The explosives they planted along the way were set for remote detonation. "We're at the command center," Steve reported. "There are about 20 Vorthak officers in here, including their fleet commander. Can you take them?" Lisa asked. "Already done," Steve replied. "Sonic pulse took them all down at once. They're alive but helpless." With the Vorthak command center neutralized, the effect on their fleet was immediate. Ships that had been moving in coordinated formations suddenly began drifting aimlessly. Without orders from above, the individual captains didn't know what to do. "Their formation is completely falling apart," reported the Liberty's tactical officer. "Some ships are trying to retreat, others are still fighting, and some have just stopped moving." Lisa smiled grimly. "Sarah, can you break their communication codes?" "Already working on it," Sarah said, her fingers flying over her console. "Human pattern recognition software is designed differently than alien systems. We can see connections they miss." Within minutes, Sarah had cracked the Vorthak military codes. Human computers, designed by a species that loved puzzles and games, proved superior to alien encryption that had remained unbroken for centuries. "I'm in their communication network," Sarah announced. "I can hear everything they're saying." "What are they saying?" "They're panicking. Half their fleet commanders are asking for orders that aren't coming. The other half are arguing about whether To retreat or keep fighting. Lisa opened a channel to her entire fleet. All ships press the attack. The enemy is in complete disarray. Don't give them time to reorganize. Back at the superweapon, Alex Chen was making his final approach. The massive cannon had dozens of defensive turrets, but Alex had noticed something the Vorthak designers had missed. There was a blind spot directly beneath the weapon's main barrel, a place where the turrets couldn't angle down far enough to fire. "I'm going in," Alex announced, diving his fighter toward the gap in the defenses. Laser fire erupted all around him, but Alex kept his ship in the narrow safe zone. Years of flying through Earth's atmosphere had taught him to navigate tight spaces at high speed. The Vorthak gunners, trained for space combat only, couldn't match his precision. "Target acquired," Alex said as he lined up his shot. Firing kinetic, penetrator. The missile streaked from his fighter and struck the superweapon's power core. Unlike the clean energy weapons the aliens were used to, the human kinetic warhead punched through multiple layers of armor before exploding deep inside the massive structure. The superweapon shuddered as internal explosions tore through its systems. Warning lights flashed across its surface as power conduits overloaded, and secondary explosions began to chain throughout the massive device. "Direct hit!" Alex shouted as he pulled his fighter away from the dying weapon. "The big gun is finished." The destruction of their superweapon was the final blow to Vorthak morale. Across their fleet, ship after ship began broadcasting surrender signals. Some tried to run, but human pursuit ships were faster and more maneuverable. Steve Johnson and his team had taken complete control of the enemy flagship. The Vorthak fleet commander, a massive warrior named Thekfar, sat in his command chair looking stunned and confused. "How?" Thekfar asked in broken English. "How did you defeat us so quickly?" Steve looked at the alien commander with something, almost like pity. "You forgot how to adapt. You've been fighting the same war for 200 years without changing anything. We've been preparing for this fight our whole lives. But your weapons and your tactics, they are primitive." "Sometimes primitive works better than advanced," Steve replied. "Sometimes old solutions are the best solutions." As the 4th hour of combat ended, the Vorthak fleet was completely broken. Ships that weren't destroyed or captured were fleeing in all directions. The superweapon that had threatened to end the war in the aliens' favor was now a cloud of expanding debris. Lisa Martinez stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display as the last enemy resistance crumbled. In less than 4 hours, humanity had accomplished what the Confederation couldn't do in 2 centuries. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining Vorthak vessels." "Accept all surrenders," Lisa ordered. "But keep our weapons trained on them until we're sure this is over." Jake Sullivan walked up beside her. "Think it's really over?" Lisa looked out at the debris field that had once been the most feared fleet in the galaxy. Human ships moved among the wreckage, rescuing survivors and securing prisoners. "For them it is," she said. "The question now is what comes next." The war that had lasted 2 centuries was ending not with a gradual victory, but with complete and total human dominance. In 5 hours, humanity had changed the balance of power in the entire galaxy. The only question left was what they would do with that power. The silence on the Vorthak flagship was deafening. Admiral Lisa Martinez walked through corridors that had never seen human feet before. Her Marines flanked her as she made her way to the command center where Commander Steve Johnson waited with the enemy fleet commander. 5 hours and 12 minutes, Jake Sullivan said, checking his chronometer. From the first shot to total victory. Lisa nodded. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was all around them. The Vorthak fleet, terror of the galaxy for 2 centuries, was finished. Some ships had been destroyed, others captured, and the few that escaped were running toward the edge of known space. The command center doors slid open, revealing a scene that would be remembered for generations. Thekvar, the mighty Vorthak fleet commander, sat slumped in his chair like a broken giant. His black armor was scorched, and his red eyes stared at nothing. "Commander," Lisa said to Steve, "report." "All resistance has ended, Admiral. The enemy, Commander, wishes to formally surrender his entire fleet." Lisa looked at Thekvar. The alien was massive, even sitting down, His forearms hung limp at his sides and his breathing was slow and heavy. For the first time in recorded history, a Vorthak leader was giving up. "Fleet Commander Thekvar," Lisa said in the formal tone required for such moments, "do you surrender your forces unconditionally?" Thekvar raised his head slowly. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. "I surrender. But I do not understand. How did you defeat us so completely? We are the strongest warriors in the galaxy." "You were strong," Lisa agreed. "But strength isn't everything." "Then what is?" Lisa thought for a moment. "Adaptation. Change. The willingness to try new things when old things stop working." "We have fought for 200 years, Thekvar said. "Our methods were proven." "Your methods were predictable," Jake said, stepping forward. "You did the same thing over and over, expecting different results. That's not warfare. That's ritual." Thekvar's eyes focused on Jake with something like curiosity. "You fought differently." "We fought to win," Jake replied. "You fought to follow tradition." Captain Rachel Stone entered the command center, her face flushed with excitement. "Admiral, the pursuit squadrons have cornered the last group of fleeing Vorthak ships. They're requesting permission to surrender." "Granted," Lisa said. "Bring them back to the main fleet." As Rachel left to relay the orders, Lisa turned back to Thekvar. "Your war is over, Fleet Commander. What will you tell your Emperor?" "That we were defeated by children who fight like demons," Thekvar said quietly. "That the humans possess weapons and tactics we cannot counter. That continued resistance is futile." And what will he say to that? He will not believe it. Until today, no force in the galaxy could stand against us. Lisa felt a moment of pity for the defeated alien. "Fleet Commander, your people are warriors. We respect that. But you became prisoners of your own success. You stopped learning because you thought you knew everything. And humans? Humans never stop learning. We never stop changing. That's what makes us dangerous." A new transmission came in from the Confederation fleet. This time it wasn't Chancellor Vexthon with his insults and doubts. Instead, Admiral Kethmore appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes wide with amazement. "Admiral Martinez," Kethmore said, his voice full of wonder, "we have monitored your engagement. In 5 hours you have accomplished what we could not do in 2 centuries. "Thank you, Admiral," Lisa replied. "The Confederation Council is requesting an immediate meeting. They wish to discuss new arrangements." Lisa exchanged glances with Jake. "What kind of arrangements?" "Leadership arrangements," Kethmore said, carefully. "The Council believes that humanity should take command of the combined fleets. Your tactical superiority is undeniable." Before Lisa could respond, another transmission cut in. Chancellor Vexthon appeared on a split screen, but this time his arrogant expression was gone. Instead, he looked humbled and almost frightened. "Admiral Martinez," Vexthon said, "I owe you an apology. I called your people primitive. I was wrong." "We are primitive in some ways," Lisa said honestly. "But that turned out to be an advantage." "How so?" "Because we never forgot that warfare is about survival, not honor. We never forgot that the goal is to win, not to look good losing." General Amy Watson's image appeared on another split screen. "Lisa, Jake, congratulations. Earth is very proud of what you've accomplished today." "Thank you, General," Lisa said. "What are our orders going forward?" "The Confederation has formally requested human leadership of all military operations. They want us to reorganize their entire defense strategy." Lisa felt the weight of that responsibility. Humanity had gone from being excluded from galactic affairs to being asked to lead them, all in the span of 5 hours. "There's something else," Watson continued. "We've received communications from 12 other species that were neutral in this war. They all want to join the Confederation now that humans are involved." "Why?" Jake asked. "Because word is spreading fast. The species that ended a 200-year war in 5 hours is the species everyone wants on their side." Dr. Helen Park's voice came over the intercom from her lab ship. "Admiral, I'm reading some interesting data from the Vorthak prisoners. They're actually relieved that the war is over. Relieved? They've been fighting for so long they forgot what peace was like. Some of them are asking if they can serve in human fleets. Lisa looked at Thekvar, who was listening to every word. Fleet commander, is that true? War is all we have known for generations, Thekvar admitted. Perhaps it is time to learn something new. What would you like to learn? How to be more than just warriors. How to build instead of just destroy. Lisa made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Fleet Commander Thekvar, I'm offering you a choice. You can be our prisoner, or you can be our ally. Help us teach your people new ways to live. Thekvar was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stood and bowed his massive head. I choose to serve. My warriors choose to serve. We will learn these new ways. Jake whistled softly. Admiral, you just recruited the enemy. Former enemy, Lisa corrected. Now they're part of the solution. As the news of humanity's complete victory spread across the galaxy, other changes began to follow. Species that had been at war for centuries started talking about peace. Old enemies began to consider new alliances. And at the center of it all were the humans, the young species that had changed everything. Captain Ben Morrison's voice came over the radio from his fighter squadron. Admiral, we've got company. About 50 ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Hostile? Lisa asked, her hand moving toward the weapons controls. Negative. They're flying Confederation flags and broadcasting welcome messages. Looks like everyone wants to congratulate the humans who ended the war. Lisa smiled as she looked out at the stars. 5 hours ago, humanity had been considered too primitive to fight. Now they were being hailed as the saviors of galactic civilization. Jake, she said, I think we're going to be very busy from now on. Good thing humans are adaptable, Jake replied with a grin. The war was over. The galaxy was at peace, and humanity had proven that sometimes being primitive was exactly what the universe needed.